CGCP 2794 by Chesthetica. White has a queen, a pair of knights and a pair of pawns. Black has a rook, bishop, knight and a pair of pawns. So white is ahead in material here. Now interestingly, the rook on d5 can be captured by the pawn. But since this is a chess problem, maybe that's not the move we're supposed to play. Let's look at something else. Yeah, what about queen to h4 check? Well then, king captures pawn, no rush to capture the rook, queen to g4 check, if king to e7, pawn captures rook, bishop to h2, queen to e6 check, king to f8, queen to c8 check, king to e7, queen to d8 mate. Actually here, black could last a bit longer if he just intervened the rook. So queen captures rook check, king to e7, king captures knight, king to f8, knight to e5 discovered check, king to e7, queen to d7 check, king to f6, knight to g4 mate. A mating net, if you will. But is that the solution? Let's see what the engines have to say. So as you can see, queen to h4 check wins, but it is not the fastest win. The key move in this case is actually pawn captures rook, the obvious move. You see, chess constructs can be or can follow traditional chess problem conventions, but not necessarily. Sometimes they more closely resemble what you would do in a real game. You can think of them as somewhere in between interesting aesthetic real game sequences and traditional chess problems, or rather spanning the whole spectrum from real game sequences to traditional chess problems, but focusing on the aesthetic aspects, the best of both worlds, so to speak. Okay, now what? Well, knight to f4 check is what? Forking the king and queen. You see? Did you see that coming? And white allows this. No problem, king to g7. Knight captures queen. I told you, no problem. Knight to g6 check. King to e8. Notice how black's pieces are too far away from the king to do anything useful. d6. And there's nothing that black can do to prevent d7 mate. Notice also in this final position, white has the same amount of material as black. Notice also the kind of symmetry of the two white knights and the two white pawns. Imagine if this happened in a real game between master players. They would be talking about it for years if not decades. Let's take a look at that again. So pawn captures rook, and here knight to f4 check is possible. We already saw where that leads, but so is king to e8. Okay, and in this position, white can still continue either with queen to h4, utilizing the queen in the checkmate, or playing d6. So if knight to f4 check, a royal fork, king to g7, knight captures queen, knight to g6, and as before, d7 cannot be prevented. Alternatively, queen to h4, as I mentioned just now. Notice how the queen doesn't even have to capture the knight and shouldn't if white wants to win quickly. Knight to f4 check, king to h7, knight captures pawn. Has black thwarted white's plans? Nope. Pawn captures knight. And whatever black plays, queen to d8 mates. So looking back, perhaps you would have seen this, doing the obvious thing, so to speak. But you might not have done that knowing that black could play this. And if you missed it and played king to g7 anyway, after black captured the queen, would you have seen this move that forces the win? I'm not so sure about that part. Overall, a pretty good composition by Chesthetica, in my view. I hope you enjoyed it as well. Thanks for watching.
Chesthetica's Book of Chess Constructs, Volumes 1 through 5. Available on Amazon.